In the initial talk about the tabernacle, we mentioned that the high priest could only enter the most holy place just once a year. That day, known as the Day of Atonement, was to become the most sacred of days, where the high priest had to follow special instructions when entering the presence of God, or he could die. First, he had to atone for his own sin, and then that of his household. To atone means the act of purifying, cleansing, and covering one's sin through the death and shedding of blood from a perfect substitute. Such atonement enables harmony to be restored between God and those separated from Him. Leviticus 17:11 says, "For the life of a creature is in the blood, and I've given it to you to make atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life." On the very first day of atonement, Moses' brother Aaron atoned for his own sin by means of the blood of a calf. Next, he chose 2 young goats to be a sin offering for all God's people. Whenever an individual brought a young goat or a lamb to the tabernacle as a sin offering, the priest would examine the animal. If the animal was perfect, its life would be given as a substitute for the sinner's life. The priest, he didn't examine the person to see if they were good enough. No. He examined the sacrifice instead. Aaron brought both goats into the tabernacle courtyard in front of the tent. He grabbed one of the goats to be a substitution sacrifice for the people's sin. The other goat was to be the scapegoat. After sacrificing the substitute goat, Aaron carried its blood behind the curtain into the most holy place. There, he sprinkled its blood upon the lid of the Ark of the Covenant, known as the atonement cover or mercy seat. And on the basis of the blood sacrifice, Aaron asked for mercy or redemption for God's people. Hebrews chapter 9 says these words, "But only the high priest entered the inner room, and that only once a year, and never without blood, which he offered for himself and for the sins the people had committed." The Holy Spirit was showing by this that the way into the most holy place had not yet been disclosed. But when Christ came as high priest of the good things that are now already here, he went through the greater and more perfect tabernacle that is not made with human hands, that is to say, is not part of this creation. He did not enter by means of the blood of goats and calves, but he entered the most holy place once for all by his own blood, thus obtaining eternal redemption. For Christ did not enter a sanctuary made with human hands that was only a copy of the true one. He entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence. Jesus became that perfect sacrifice, carrying his own blood into the most holy place within the real tabernacle in heaven. As a result, the curtain on earth that separates us from God was torn, signifying the way is now open to come into the very presence of God. Despite this amazing truth, sometimes we can struggle with feelings of guilt, shame, and unworthiness. Well, let me tell you about the second goat. Aaron took the scapegoat, meaning the goat that escapes and never comes back, and he placed both hands on the goat's head and confessed all of the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites. All their sin was placed on the head of the goat. Then the goat was led far into the wilderness and released, never to come back. Psalm 103 verse 12 says, "As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us." When you come before God in worship, in prayer, or in breaking bread in communion, God is not looking at you to see if you are good enough. He is looking at the blood sacrifice of his Son Jesus, seeing if he is a perfect substitute. As for those sins you have confessed to God, he has put them on the scapegoat and sent them into the wilderness, never to come back. As far as the east is from the west, he has removed your sin, your guilt, your shame, and any unworthiness. Don't let the devil fool you. The way is open for you to boldly approach God's throne to receive grace and mercy in your time of need.
Hey guys, for those who don't know me, my name is Jenny. I am so excited to be here with you today. I firstly just want to say a really big thank you to Pastor Ken for the first part of his message. We are just so blessed to have really incredible pastors who can share the word with us. But right now, I just want to take a moment where we're going to pause. And I want to give you the chance to talk with God personally, to give him the things that have been holding you back from your past, to give him the things that maybe you've chosen to hold on to, or maybe it's just some things that have made you feel unworthy. And so